Another day, flavorless forage.
What in the heck is this magic? It smells intriguing. Could this be the answer to my lifelong struggle against bland wilderness cuisine? Okay, deep breaths. Don't get your hopes up, big guy.
Finally, a meal fit for a famished Bigfoot. Thank you, Alpine Touch. My Rocky Mountain adventures just got a whole lot tastier.
Big Sky Breakdown, proudly presented by the Bobcat Collective at Montana State. The Bobcat Collective is the NIL collective that serves Montana State University student athletes. The collective is partnered with Montana State to connect fans, alumni, businesses, and local nonprofits with Montana State student athletes. Opportunities through the collective allow student athletes to earn compensation while serving the greater Montana State University community. Sign up now for memberships and enjoy automatic entry into raffles for free tickets while supporting the bright minds at Montana State. They have multiple different membership tiers, and you can also be a one-time supporter, and you can also business partner or corporate supporter. Visit bobcatcollective.com for more.
All right, excited to head into conference play this week. Opening up against Eastern Washington. We have homecoming, so a lot of exciting things going on here in Bozeman, ending this four-game home stretch. Looking back at Saturday, I think there's a lot of positives to take away from it. Obviously, you win the game, you hold the team, to 0 points. I thought, given the nature of that game, 6 possessions kind of on each side, that's just a rare game as far as the opportunities go. Offensively, within that, there were some fine points, and ultimately, our inability to open it up had a lot to do with a lot of things. It was their ability to stay on the field, and obviously our ability not to get them off the field. I think offensively, it's settling for 3 versus getting a touchdown that second sequence. Coming out of half and holding them and they're 3 and out, getting the punt we wanted, and then driving the football, and then turning the ball over. It just sequentially ended up being a game that was odd and one you walk away from. Even though we won, I don't think we felt great about the performance overall, and that's just the nature of where we're at. I think our expectations are that game should go a certain way, and the other team's fighting and battling too, and has a plan. And on that particular Saturday, that's the way it played out. So, it was good to get Burke back in there. Burke played well for his first game. I know that created some musical chairs, and we'll have to keep sorting that out, what our best 5 is, or if there's going to be a continual rotation of some sort. It was good to get Chris back. I know he had a couple opportunities to touch the football. I think Chris Long will provide us more than a spark moving forward, but it was good just to get him out there and get him going. And coming out of that game, we're no worse for wear either. So continue to be a relatively healthy team. And that's where we need to be. I think depth-wise, I think we're continuing to sort out what that looks like at a lot of positions. The nature of our non-conference, we didn't get a lot of 2s and 3s very much time. All that being said, some 2s are certainly playing considerable, and I think that's going to warrant them playing more and more, specifically thinking on the defensive side, both up front and at linebacker, cornerback. We're playing multiple guys at those position groups in particular. So, excited about conference season starting at the same time. This is obviously where, the next step has to occur for us. In Eastern Washington, we face a team that we've played every year since I've been here. This is just the second time we've played them here in Bozeman. And all 3 games out in Cheney have been games that have come basically right down to the wire, including last year where there was a point in time that that game was tied deep into the game, and we scored the last 2 touchdowns in that game, but it wasn't like we won that game by a large margin. And they're off to a 1-3 start, but I know they've been very competitive. 2 of their losses coming to Incarnate Word and Northern Iowa. Games that I'm sure they felt like could have gone either way, and then they bounced back with a win over Western Illinois the other day. I know they've, in the midst of it, they had to switch quarterbacks, so we don't necessarily know what that's going to make for this week. Both those quarterbacks, Taylor and Bell, are their leading rushers. So it's clear to say whichever one is going to play, it's going to be a quarterback run-driven offense. A little bit different makeup just generally for them. Each year we've seen them. They've had Efton Chisholm, and he was such a focal point for us defensively, and they don't have that. It's not that they have very capable receivers, but they don't have that type of guy. How they're doing it is different. But thinking back to when we played them last year, they didn't have their starting quarterback for the game, so it was a mix of Taylor in that game and I think Wortham at the time. So they were in that game at least a quarterback run-driven team. So I think there's some things we can take from that game last year, and certainly looking at what they've been able to do this year. Whichever one plays, I know Bell was playing quite a bit as a receiver, as a running back before Taylor got hurt against Boise. So either way, those two guys are going to be the focal point of where our attention needs to start on the defensive side. For them defensively and what our offense has to look at, they did give us some trouble from time to time. Big front, they move quite a bit. They show you a lot of different looks. And we had success in the run game last year. I know we hit the long pass to tie late. I do think that mix has to be there. They have been very aggressive, so the ball has gotten behind them in the passing game at times. So it's certainly my hope that can happen for us. But first and foremost, we got to be tied in together up front, O-line tight ends, to handle all their movement, handle all the different looks that they present. So again, excited about the opportunity, and felt like we got off to a good start this morning with the first practice of the week, and ready to take on the Eagles come the end of the week.
You mentioned the lack of possessions in that game kind of making it hard to really judge the O-line combinations you had, and then they all seem to have varying levels of success, each group. Did the film clarify any of that?
Well, a couple things. I know the two guys were asking to play two positions that would have been tight and played right guard and right tackle. I think he handled that transition fine. I think he's going back to his home place playing right tackle. Cedric playing right tackle and left tackle. Hard to discern anything there. I think he'd been a left tackle until he wasn't, and he was a right tackle. Now he's playing both. So just judging how that went, it was hard to say that was positive or negative. I know Everett playing just right guard, I think was positive for him. He'd been a right guard all the way through spring and fall until we moved him to left before the Oregon game. So I do think that was a positive move for him. So I think it's something that through the course of this week we got to settle on one or two things. One is, hey, we're just going with this particular lineup, or two, we are going to have some level of rotation going again, and level of rotation is fine as long as you feel like when you move all that around, it makes sense for everybody. It's a lot easier if you're just rotating one spot, but that probably won't be how we do it if we rotate. Because leaving JT and Burke and Titan on the field in some fashion is definitely what we want to do, and how the other three pieces move into two, I guess, is two spots is how we have to sort that out.
Was Burke at guard instead of center? Is that just because he hasn't snapped very much?
Well, I think it's two things. It's because he hasn't snapped because he has right-hand club, but it's also how JT's played. We made a off-season decision to go with Burke over JT. JT got some work, and that plan got derailed, and then JT's played well enough through the first few games. We didn't want to shuffle that back around.
Colson got some early run in this last game, and it's been a 45-yarder, I think. Do you envision him getting more of those early extra?
Well, it was intentional in this game to roll both Colson and Jared a little bit more. And then how it played out, their attempts per reps in the game, those two backups, was extremely high. I think one was 6 for 8 and one was 5 for 7 or something like that. Typically, you go out there as a running back, you're not getting the ball at that percentage of plays. It just worked out that way. So I think more than anything, those two guys are very capable. I think clearly our top two are still Adam and Julius, and we need to have them all 4 ready to go. So it played out that way on Saturday. We'll get to the end of the week and say, here's how any plan of rotation might work. But I think both those guys prove that they're, more than capable. Both Colson and Jared.
Defensively, did anything stand out on the film in terms of you guys staying on the field longer on those 4th down conversions?
Well, I think there was 2 3rd and 6s in particular that they were in their territory, and we needed to make plays. It was assignment football. I think on the very first 3rd and 6, assignment that we ultimately sorted out later on, and it was probably a little bit of the same later on. Just in those down distance, when you have them backed up and they're in a 3rd and 6 like that, we gotta stand up, because ultimately the 1 3rd down stop we made after halftime was a 3rd and 1. So that was a good response. Now, I think flipping it over, I think they did a good job of just chipping away at us at times. There were some long yardage situations that we didn't tackle real well. One in particular that was a really long 3rd and long that then, all of a sudden it creates this 4th and medium versus it should have been a 4th and long. So I think it was play selection a little bit from their standpoint, being able to get the matchup they wanted. They won a couple one-on-one matchups, thinking about the same kind of play and a little option route in particular that we got to be able to defend better. So at the end of it, they were 4 of 14 on 3rd down, but they were, I think, 4 of 7 on 4th down. So that means they converted 8 of those 14 times. So within those 8 conversions, if you could somehow cut that in half, that would have been a lot different looking day. And a couple of those are the 3rd downs and they're backed up, and certainly a couple of those are, the 4th downs where we just, we weren't exactly where we were supposed to be.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
You mentioned Ty McCullough's touchdown against Eastern last year, and just that need of that kind of threat, getting Chris back in the rotation, back from injury. Just how does he open up your offense?
Well, I think he opens up because he can get open. I think that's probably the first thing. We went in the game on Saturday. We took a few shots. None of those shots ended up going Chris's direction. I know there's a couple that could have went his way, and the ball didn't find him. I think his ability to get free and clear is just a little bit different. His ability to play the ball in the air is maybe just a little bit different too. Now, we haven't seen it in a game. There hasn't been an opportunity for him yet, but I think we've seen enough in practice to think that's the case. So, yeah, getting behind the defense, especially a defense that wants to pack it in and leave their corners on islands, is something that we need to be able to do. We haven't done too much of that so far. And I know that game on Saturday looks a little different if all of a sudden we have a few big plays, and we really didn't have any big plays. I guess Colson's run was probably the biggest play of the day. So, having big play ability is one thing, but having the ability to execute big plays is another thing. And that's when given those opportunities, what we need to do. And that was a big play last year to kind of put us to 2 scores last year. And Ty was that threat certainly on last year's team. So it's my hope that or a thought that Chris is going to move into that now that he's back.
A lot of, or decent amount of 13 personnel in this game. I think on the one that Justin missed, Rocky, that was like even an I formation with those 3 on the field. So I know we talked a lot about getting the tight ends, but what did you think of those plays?
Well, they were all short yardage plays, and I think we short yardage, through the course of the field, we did a pretty good job. We converted in those situations. Obviously, that scenario of getting down there and going 1st and 1, losing some yards, and that was 2nd down when we didn't complete that ball to Rocky. Our ability to get all 3 of those guys on the field, whether it's run heavy or not, needs to be something we can do. I think there's a versatility, again, amongst that group have to be under center, to be in the eye, to be offset, to move a couple guys like we have. So it's been a relatively productive package for us in the short yardage. I think in particular as we look at the last couple games, our success rate in the short yardage has been much better than it had been the first 2 games. So that's a positive. But a play like that, we got to be able to make that play, and that's certainly more on Justin than it was anything Rocky did.
And just those different types. I mean, it seems like, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but compared to preseason, maybe more different looks, different formations, the personnel groupings. Do you feel like that's something you guys have been doing, and how do you feel like just maybe that the very varied offense is kind of produced this season?
Well, I think if you're talking just personnel-wise, whether we have 2 or 3 tight ends on the field, I think we can do a variety of things. I think that's probably the biggest thing. I don't think the group of guys pigeonholes us one way or the other. And being able to use our personnel, be it 3 tight ends on the field or all the way down to no tight ends on the field is something so then that puts 4 receivers on the field. I think we've had a few plays where we've even had 5 receivers on the field. I think that flexibility is good as long as we show a variety of things out of each one of those groupings over time, and our level of execution, more importantly, is where it needs to be. So I think we feel good about functionally what our guys can do, and I think which the bigger picture is, okay, after 4 games now, what have we done out of all these different personnel groupings, and what does that how does that appear to the defense? And I think that's something we got to continue to look at, but the fact that we were able to throw out a 13, run a bunch of times, I think the defense has more to defend. So I know there's more to build off of. Utilizing our personnel, though, I guess is maybe what you're asking, is that really important to our offense? It absolutely is.
Yeah, I imagine just that there's a mix of wanting to find the best thing for your team to put that defense on its toes, and also probably future opponents, right?
Yeah, I think it's trying to be as unpredictable as possible, and trying to gain personnel advantages whenever you can too. A lot of defenses, not all of them anymore, but some certainly sub based on your personnel, and if you can find something there that you can take advantage of, you want to do that. So trying to create matchups that will work in our favor is always what we're after. And I don't know that we're quite there yet, but I think we've done some good things through the course of the year.
Defending a Big Sky title, I know winning the Big Sky is part of the pyramid. Just how are you seeing your team kind of attack that as it starts this week against Eastern Washington?
Well, it's a priority for us to finish that way, but we're just at the start. So I think knowing first of all, how important each one of these games are moving forward, knowing how, through the course of time, you could say whatever you want about whatever other games teams have played, but we should expect everyone's best shot. And right now, looking at the league, saying, coming out of the non-conference, pretty unpredictable right now, I would say, just based on how things have gone. And again, score comparison and even opponent comparison sometimes is very tricky this time of year. So I think for us, it's now we're on the conference play. We know we need to get better. There's no doubt about that. I think we've scratched the surface, but we have a long ways to go. So this is that next step, and it is against a conference opponent. A team that's given us fits at times, and a team that has a really strong history. So we gotta put our best foot forward and just be concerned with Eastern Washington right now, and playing the best we really can, the best we can.
I know turnovers can be kind of context dependent, but I guess what you thought of how opportunistic the defense has been, I think, getting the first interception.
Yeah, and then both turnovers were on 4th down, so we're going to get the ball back anyways. But I know getting those turnovers nonetheless was huge, because we hadn't. I think we had 1 takeaway in the first few games. So big sack strip by Paul on the first one, and then the interception is a good play, because now it happens in the end zone. We get the ball at the 20 versus inside the 10. So I think the thing about our defense is we got to continue to find ways to take the ball away when those opportunities are there. But I think what they showed is quite a bit of fight. We can build off of that. Execution might not be exactly where it needs to be, but the fight and the belief, I guess, in each other was there, and that's why I think there was a 0 for Mercyhurst at the end of the game. I mean, I know they were even first and goal at the one of those sequences. So, we got a defense. I think that, again, just like every other team, has this ability to keep growing, and taking the ball away more and more is a big piece of that.
I know you mentioned earlier how Eastern has used two different quarterbacks. Bell's gotten to the start the last couple of times. What have you seen it from him? And I think I've had 5 total touchdowns last game.
Yeah, athletic kid for sure. I know a good enough arm to get it all over the place, and it's been a bunch of big plays in the passing game, but elusive first and foremost. And the design piece is one thing which they're willing to do time and time again. The design quarterback runs, but then his ability to evade pressure and create plays is significant. And while I think Taylor's a little bigger version. I was really impressed with his running ability last year, but I would say their running style is maybe just a little bit different. So based on who plays, I mean, there's probably a little bit of a difference there as far as what they're able to do. And if Taylor's out there, then Bell's doing something else. I mean, that was what they were doing before. They were finding ways to get him the ball. So I think that says something about Bell in itself, that he was playing receiver and running back prior, as the backup quarterback prior to playing quarterback.
And then I think they also have a Conquest who is kind of been their all-purpose guy. I don't know
Yep.
if you've seen anything from him and what stands out about him.
Yeah, he's their guy that's finding open space. I think that's probably the best way to look at it. And they've, that's been a big piece of their offense is, someone that's got feel. And a lot of times that had been Chisholm over the last few years. But, a guy that's got feel, a guy that can run after the catch. I think he appears to be that. But they got, a couple other guys I know that have gotten behind the defense too. So it's a little bit different of a receiving core, just from the standpoint you don't have this marquee guy, but I think it's been a very productive group at the same time.
Is a will you marry me in your future? Or maybe you do it all over again. Hi, I'm Brian Toon with Jewelry Design Center, inviting you to come see the largest selection of Will You Marry Me in the state of Montana. The brightest diamonds of every shape and size, unique settings built to last, and skilled jewelers on site offering free sizing and maintenance for life, because that's how long we want to be your jeweler. Jewelry Design Center in Missoula, on Brooks, across from the Montana Club.
What's the biggest challenge in facing a quarterback that has mobility? You guys saw it a couple times this year so far, but how do you go into preparing for that?
I think, talking about the pass side of it, is maintaining the integrity of your rush, and that's not always simple. We got good guys that can rush the passer. They got to still understand that where the level of that quarterback is, and not getting past it, not creating these wide open lanes for a mobile quarterback to get out. So the discipline in our rush is certainly one thing. I think game planning wise, how we choose to pressure and what that looks like, how we even choose to move our defensive line, that has to be well thought out, and then more than anything, well executed. In the run game, it's picking and choosing your battles, because the +1 run game you get from a quarterback, gets the numbers back to the offensive side. There's some aggressiveness you can take in how you deploy your guys, but then that leaves you, in those scenarios where now maybe you're over-aggressive and you have to defend the pass a little bit different. So I think it's a real balance defending the quarterback run, and I think you pick and choose your battles situationally there. But the bigger piece to me is the unscripted scrambling, extending plays, gaining yards that way that we really have to eliminate.
Coach, just your initial thoughts on the Eastern Washington defense and the challenges they present.
Well, they got a bunch of impressive guys up front. I know that, and they line up a lot of different ways. They generally deploy their guys in an aggressive manner, meaning numbers in the box. So they make the run game challenging from the standpoint we have to be disciplined. We have to be on the same page. We got to be able to handle movement. All those things can be done, but it's harder than just if someone's going to line up and play sometimes. Now, on the flip side, if you do things right, it can be hard for them too. Fitting runs when you're moving all over the place and when your safeties are down in there sometimes can be really hard if we do things right. So I think that's the biggest thing is just our ability to be disciplined against their alignments and their movements, and then be able to create movement and not play slow. We got to get a run game going. I think that's the thing. But then, when we choose to throw it, we got to be able to, be efficient, but ideally have some big playability too.
How do you balance when you get a guy like Chris back, kind of put him on a little bit of a pitch count, but also trying to force targets to him in a way to try to get him the ball?
Well, I hope that game of doing just that is behind us. He didn't practice a lot last week, but he practiced for the first time. There was a conscious thought of, hey, we're only going to play him so much, and within that, hopefully we get him some targets. Now I hope he can just kind of roll into the flow of the game. It doesn't mean he needs to play 60 plays by any means, but hopefully is getting 10, 15 more than he got on Saturday, so he's getting in the 40s. Then, the ball is finding him enough times where he can make an impact, I guess. So going backwards, it was, I think we probably executed that how we thought we might. There was a couple opportunities, again, to get him the ball downfield, but then now moving forward, I think we can get him more in the regular flow.
Eastern had some kicking struggles. It doesn't look like they've maybe attempted a lot of fourth downs, but are you guys preparing maybe for something sort of like what you saw last week with the fourth down tries?
Well, I would say maybe we showed a little vulnerability there, I suppose, but the game continues to evolve where, kicker or not, you cross midfield, I think going for fourth and manageable especially is something that you could probably play that game until you get to the 25 regardless of your kicker. So we definitely have to be prepared for that. I know Mercyhurst was prepared to go for it in fourth and long more than anybody I've seen, and that's what they had shown. So I think we always have that mindset of four down territory and what that means and how you treat third down once the team has crossed midfield. So we got to be better, and it's not just the fourth down plays there. It's what are we doing on third down to make the fourth down as hard as it possibly can be, and maybe knock them out of the thought process that they would go for it. So, I think that's a common thought every week. Mercyhurst was even more so because of what they had shown to that point.
There's always a party in Montana, whether you're going to a wedding, a football game, a concert. Montana Party Bus can get you there safe and will take you anywhere in Montana. You can relax with friends in style, luxury, and safety. Western Montana based for local and regional travel within Montana borders. Montana Party Bus is great for both large and small groups with a capacity of up to 30 guests. If you want to elevate your event, call them anytime, 406-200-8096. You can also visit mtpartybus.com. Travel anywhere in Montana in style with the Montana Party Bus.
Coulter, do you have anything?
Yeah, Coach, can you hear me okay?
Gotcha, yep.
You mentioned Eastern Washington's strong history. They do have such a strong history. How have you seen them just evolve in your 5 years in the league so far?
Yeah, coming into it in 21, I don't think we had beaten them here in a long time, and we beat them that year, and that was a hard-fought game. I know that was a playoff team for them. Quarterback was all everything, Barrier, right? Barrier. So they were this team that really, I think, revolved around him and everything that he did. Offensively, and they were a team that, generally speaking, you thought they're probably going to try to outscore you. I thought last year the shift you saw, and we didn't face Vesperis, I think is his name, Kakoa, in our game. He was a little bit more of the things could revolve around him, but they've continued to find their run game. The last few years, they've continued, I think, to play better and better defense, and their defense has changed quite a bit. I think that's probably just the structure and the aggressive nature. That's changed quite a bit. I know Aaron's had a bunch of different coordinators through just this stretch. But yeah, I think just overall they've shifted into being this kind of high flying, going to outscore you outfit that had this really, really accomplished quarterback with a bunch of different weapons to, offensively, maybe being they certainly are a more run-oriented team right now, and defensively they've dialed it up. And I know they've lost a bunch of close games, so they've been really competitive. And last year we played them later, and you felt like what impressed me the most, that was a team that was fighting their tails off on that day, and that was a later in the year deal. So Coach Best has kept them in the fight, kept that thing moving forward, and I think for us, we got to expect their very best effort because we've seen that time and time again.
It's always interesting talking to Coach Best and their players because they constantly talk about when they're playing either of the Montana schools or Idaho. That's kind of like they have three rivals, right? And he really seems to play that up. So is that something you talk to your guys about in terms of they're going to bring it on Saturday? You have to expect that.
Yeah, for sure. And I know the scheduling model will change, but through this last scheduling model, we've played them every year, so they've been a consistent rival for sure. And I think the proximity to Montana, and to then Idaho, the University of Idaho, I think they naturally have overlap in recruiting. We recruit out that way, in particular in Western Washington, just like they do. And I think you look at the four universities you're talking about, I think just that brings rivalry into it. Just the fact that we recruit a lot of the same guys. And then, I think just level of success that they've had, that we've had, that the University of Montana's had. I think that, that in itself, I think is rivalry worthy. I know, obviously you had Idaho to that as of late too. So, I think it's easier for our guys to recognize this is a team that's going to, get up to play us. So we have to return the favor. And, I think over these years, I think each one of the games, particularly the ones out there, if our eyes aren't open because of how those games have gone, then shame on us. So, I think, and here we sit, it's the first conference game. Everybody's got a little bit of a new lease on life. The non-conference is done. You're 0-0. Everyone is in the conference at this point. So, everybody's after that 1-0 start, which, we certainly are.
You mentioned just the strengths of the quarterback, but I'm wondering if they've always had guys that can move in the pocket, but they've gone more to this running quarterback type of model these last couple of years. Do you think that's sort of reflective of Aaron wanting to run the ball more? I guess you mentioned them wanting to run the ball more. It seems like those two things go hand in hand.
Yeah, and they were certainly different with Taylor and Wortham playing in that spot last year than they were with Vesperis. He could move a little bit, but it was the quarterback run game was more about the other guys. So to me, you're obviously recruiting personnel too. So maybe that's been we want to recruit athleticism. We want the best guy to play. We want to have some element of, the run game be involved in it. I would think that was a conscious decision on the recruiting side, and then that's how it's played out as far as the way their depth chart fell this particular year. And there's no better way to get the numbers at least in your favor than to have your quarterback run. Now there's a chance and the risk that you take when you do that all too often, but it's appeared that that's a risk that they've been willing to take, and they've had good backs over the years too, so it's been a mix. But nothing kind of corrects your run game faster than getting your quarterback involved with it.
Writing a story about your secondary and just the progress they've made. The thing that stands out to me so much is how they're all willing tacklers. So can you just talk about that element of it, just the sort of the fearless nature of some of those guys, especially the guys who are playing corner for you right now?
Yeah, I think confidence is at a premium in that position, and that's okay. You much rather have it that way than the other way, and I think they're all thick-skinned kids too. I think they're all guys that believe that if I missed out on that play, I'm going to make the next one. If I made the last one, I'm going to make the next one. And you got to have that. They got to have that short memory out there, whether it's a good or bad play you're putting behind you. And they're all skilled. I think that matters first and foremost, that they have the ability, that the confidence is real. It's about real things. I think they're all the corners are all competitive young men too. I think that's that's a piece that they want to be challenged. They want that that really hard job of being out there at times on an island. They're all fearless tacklers, and that's something that doesn't always come into play, but it's an expectation that our corners are going to be that. I know Trent Green's done a really good job with them after Brian Shepard had. They're well coached, and I think they all love the game. So to have this group of three redshirt freshmen and then a redshirt junior playing, but being of that mindset doesn't always go that way, and we got to keep them moving forward, because it's a very important position in our defense, and the fact that we're playing 4 guys now, I think is a great thing. And I know at the other positions we're still trying to develop depth. We asked different things of the safety nickel group, but I think that group is making strides while Taki's been out. I think there's still an elevated ability that Taden Gray can show, but he's done some really good things now as a regular guy. I think Bryant Meredith and J.J. Dolan continue, and we're going to continue to tandem them at free safety, but I think they've done a better job each week in their role, and then Caden's been really good at the strong safety spot so far.
Just the sort of it seems like there's a lot of chemistry between Coach Green and some of those young guys, right? Young coach, young group, seems like they're really feeding off of each other. What have you liked just about the way he's sort of taking control of that group?
Yeah, he's very detailed, first and foremost, and then he requires this young group to play with detail. I think he's not excusing them for their age, I guess, and I think they need that. They can't be, I guess, given too much leash. So he's really pushed them well, and they're I think it's a group of guys that want to be as good as they can be, and when you have that mindset, you're willing to be coached. And so they're willing to be coached. Coach Green is coaching the heck out of them as far as just asking them to, play to a standard and play with the detail, and, not giving them an inch as far as their performance. I know when we go through the film, because that's a position that the ball might not be going towards you, but if you're getting beat, you have bad eyes consistently on film, the next opponent's going to find you. So continuing to even coach the plays maybe even harder when the ball isn't going their way, I think we see, and just creating that group as far as discipline goes to be at a premium. We still have some work to do, but I think that's probably the word I would use the most with Trent is he is creating a disciplined group, and that for the group to have 3 redshirt freshmen in it, and that to be a quality that I think is attainable is. I think it's very important, but it's not easy to come by.
I may have missed this. I don't think so, though. I don't know if anybody's asked you about passing Coach Holland on the all-time wins list at Montana State. That sort of got overshadowed the last couple of weeks. So, just your thoughts. There's a statue of the man out front of the stadium, so it must be an honor for you to move beyond him on the wins list. For sure.
Coach Holland is everything here, and that's a piece of that was his coaching career. I think everything he was for so long as a player, an All-American national championship player, coming back as an assistant to become a head coach, and then beyond that, as much on the administrative fundraising side, his legacy is at the top of the list here at Montana State. And I know his time as a coach was obviously a very successful run for the Bobcats. So to be, I guess, mentioned alongside of him, whatever, I think, it does certainly mean a lot, because I know I got a chance to meet him a few times, to spend some time with him before he had passed, get to know his daughters, his family, and as much as anything, hear from all the guys that he coached through that stretch and how much he meant. He's something else, and this place, clearly meant the world to him, and he made sure that he left his fingerprints all over it, I guess. So, yeah, I think different time as far as where I'm coaching compared to where he's coaching, opportunities, games, playoff games, all that stuff. But yes, it's quite an honor to be mentioned alongside him.
But you mentioned his fingerprints as being on everything. so many of those guys that play for him that are still around, that are pillars of the community, and they all talk about Coach Holland and the impact he had on their lives. So long lasting, it seems like. It seems like he's had an impact for 5+ decades there, just in that community in general.
Yeah, and just the other night we had our quarterback club banquet, and there was a group of the guys that were on the 76 team, and they were giving me some compliments, I suppose, and it's like, and we played for Sonny. I'm like, yeah, I know you played for Sonny. I know that. I know what time what years you were through here, and I think the thing about him, it really has nothing to do with X's and O's and any of that. It's who he was to those guys as a mentor, father figure, and I know that didn't end when they walked off campus. I think that was a forever thing for those guys, and I had a chance to go to his memorial service back in, I think it would have been December of 22, and the guys that made their way back for that, and I think that it's those type of days where you see it up close and personal what this person meant to all these people, and you hear the stories and all that. So, I think as a coach, yes, you could be compared on the wins and losses side for sure, but to ultimately get to the end of your career and be compared to someone like him as far as the impact you had on young men and then men as they grow and become husbands and fathers and all that stuff, that's what you really I think marks who you were and the legacy you left. So he clearly did that, and deserves all the praise, and the statue and everything, the end zone. I think that all comes with the territory for what he did.
Winter is coming, so certainly lots of different elements come with that. Everybody's trying to winterize their house. I'm trying to figure out what to do with all my leaves. What sort of things can you guys do to help sort of mitigate and get people's houses ready for winter? Also, if something goes bad during the winter, how can you guys help?
Yeah, so our biggest thing with winter is, again, like you said, you want to winterize your home. You want to make sure you undo all your hoses. You want to make sure you don't have any areas where you could get cold, like in your garage, and you have some kind of water that can freeze. I think our main goal for us is just to be aware that when it gets really cold, when it gets -20, -30 here, which it might this year, we could have a really heavy winter.
Yeah.
That you check all the areas of the home. You check the bathrooms. You make sure that you go down in your basement. A big thing we see in the winter is people that go in their basement for a week or two. They go down there and they've got 3-4 inches of water because of pipe burst, and they weren't aware of it. So just know that things can happen when it gets that cold inside your home if you don't check them and you're not aware of that.